Peace and blessings to the family. It is me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Broadcasting Community. Shout out to the Louisiana All-American Sports Network. We getting ready to pop it off this Friday with some Louisiana high school football. Shout out to Envision Photography and Video. Of course, he and I, we're going to be linking up pretty soon to give you some Southern University content. So stay tuned for that. And last but not least, shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. Breaking news, Jaguar Nation. Mark Frederick is out as the offensive coordinator. Fred McNair, quarterback coach. He's going to be the new OC at Southern. This move was obvious and apparent. And I think Coach Graves, he was being proactive with this particular situation. However, I think the issue is the house is already on fire. At this point, the only thing he really could do is get the wife and get the kids out because, truthfully speaking, I think it might be too little too late. And I think the thing about it is this coming Saturday, Southern has Fresno State coming up. It doesn't matter if you have Jaylen Woods at quarterback, if you have Fred McNair as your offensive coordinator. I don't think it's really going to matter. Looking at ESPN, they gave Fresno State a 99% chance of beating Southern on Saturday. So, truthfully speaking, Southern going out there to the West Coast to get a behind whooping. We know it is what it is. So, truthfully speaking, you're really not trying to prepare and get ready for Fresno State. You're trying to prepare and get ready for Jackson State in the bye week leading up to Jackson State. So that's really what you're trying to do. And I talked about it, a little bit in my most recent edition of the Tailgate Party. If you have not checked it out, go check out the Tailgate Party. But, I gave a recap of the P. Richardson Classic, which was on Saturday. And I also talked about the upcoming game against Fresno State a little bit. But more than anything, I talked about what I would do if I was the offensive coordinator. So, first and foremost, I think for the game against Jackson State, best case scenario, you would want Jaylen Woods to be back, to be healthy. I think at this point, his health is more important than whatever Southern can do on the field as a team. His health is important. That's the top priority. So if he's fully cleared and he's fully cleared to go, he's cleared all concussion protocol, you play him against Jackson State. But truthfully speaking, I don't even know if it's worth it because last year he got hurt leading up to the SWAC championship game against Jackson State. He got hurt in the Bayou Classic against Grambling. Then this season, he got hurt against Mississippi Valley, second game of the season. I'm not saying he's injury prone, but he's had like 2 concussions in like the last 2 games he's played in. No, I'm sorry. 2 of the last 3 games he's played in, he's got a concussion. So you definitely need to be cautious and leery of that. You got to protect him as a quarterback. That's, first things first. And in terms of if he's going to start at quarterback, you can keep your offense the same. However, if you have to start Cameron McCoy, truthfully speaking, if you have to start Cameron McCoy, first thing I would do is, unless he's passing the ball, we're not going out the shotgun. I think the issue with Mark Frederick's vanilla, bland, simple, basic spread offense, my middle school, junior high school spread offense was more complex than Mark Frederick's spread offense. Just trying to run inside zone 40 times a game against elite level SWAC teams, it wasn't going to cut it. So that's the reason why he's out. But, you've had too many issues with fumbles in terms of running inside zone as much as they've run it. So I would put Cameron McCoy under center. That's the first thing I would do. Second, he's a running quarterback, so I would try to, implement some option and just some other design run, to give him some opportunities to run the ball. In addition to that, I would incorporate some rollouts, some sprint passes, some flood passes to get him on the perimeter. Another thing I would do too is the plays that worked on Saturday, the swing pass to Trey Holly, the swing pass to Mike Franklin, the crossing route to Darren Morris, the speed out to Cam Jefferson. I would keep all of those plays as staples in my playbook. But I will also implement some jet sweeps, some reverses, some draws, in terms of draws to, Trey Holly or Mike Franklin, whoever you got in the game at running back. I will implement some draws, and I will implement also some design quarterback draws for Cameron McCoy. And in addition to that, some screen passes. Like, you got to get Trey Holly involved in the screen game. And I know a lot of people are down on a jailbreak, tunnel screen, bubble screens. But I think if you could get Dupree Fuller and Jermaine Minor out in front of Cam Jefferson and Darren Morris, I would try to get them a couple jailbreak screens, tunnel screens, bubble screens. Not a bunch of them, but a few of them. And I would make a concerted effort to get Darren Morris and Cam Jefferson the ball. Now, I know a lot of people have been saying if Darren Morris is your best wide receiver, your wide receiving core sucks and is trash, whatever the case may be. I don't care. Despite what people might say, I think based on what I saw Saturday night, it's clear, it's obvious, and it's apparent that Cam Jefferson and Darren Morris are your two best wide receivers. I think Malachi Sticks Jackson, he could give you, some good time at points. Same thing with Kobe Brown. But I think the thing about it is I think Darren Morris is clearly your number one. I think Cam Jefferson is clearly your number two wide receiver. And I think at the end of the day, I think you got to make a concerted, conscious effort to get your playmakers the ball. Trey Holly, Mike Franklin. I'm not going to lie, Dupree Fuller and Jermaine Minor, they let me down Saturday. Darren Morris, you got to get him the ball. I don't care what people say about if he's your best receiver, your receiving core trash. You got to get Darren Morris the ball. You got to get Cam Jefferson the ball. I think, getting Darren Morris involved when he runs that crossing route. Cameron McCoy hit that a couple times on Saturday. The speed out to Cam Jefferson. The swing pass to Mike Franklin and Trey Holly. Another thing, too, in terms of Trey Holly should not be returning kicks. Hey, let Barry Remo, let Jason Gabriel return kicks. I don't want Trey Holly. He already touching the ball enough as it is. I think he's clearly your feature back. I'll try to get him 20 carries, maybe 25 total touches, maybe like 5 passes out the backfield, 20 carries. But I think the thing about it is I think the issue I had with the running game on Saturday, first of all, being an offensive coordinator is about scaffolding in terms of calling and building plays on top of each other in terms of the play calling. And not only that, it's a feel to it. Mark Frederick clearly didn't have the feel as an offensive coordinator. I don't care what nobody say. He was a terrible offensive coordinator. That's the reason why they got rid of him. But I think the thing about it is, despite, that being said, I think, in terms of your running back core, you go eight deep at running back. Now, I know you definitely won't get Trey Holly his touches, but you got Mike Franklin. You got Amarian Asbury. You got Jason Gabriel. You got Barry Remo. You got Princeton Kahee. Like, you shouldn't try to get him all 20 carries on one possession. They should constantly rotate fresh running backs in. If you go A deep at running back, get some of these other backs touches. Get Mike Franklin involved. Get Jason Gabriel. Get Barry Remo involved. Get all these running backs involved. You got so many running backs, really, at certain points, you should have 2 backs in a game. So at the end of the day, I think these are the players you need to get involved in your offense. I think if Jaylen Woods is back and he's healthy, whenever he's back, I think you can just kind of, stick with your normal shotgun spread offense. However, if Cameron McCoy is in the game, I think you should go in the center. You should lean heavily on the running game. And then when you do implement passes, the passes I just listed should be the passes that you put in your package in terms of, from passing plays perspective. But in terms of getting rid of Mark Frederick is your offensive coordinator and making Fred McNair your offensive coordinator. I think the issue with that is it's too little, too late. At this point now, the house is already on fire. The only thing you could do is get your wife and get your kids out of the house because the house is already on fire. And truthfully speaking, I know Terrence Graves is trying to be proactive, but I think it's already too little, too late. And at this point, I'm not going to lie, you really need to be thinking about who's going to be the next head coach at Southern. I hate to say it, unless, you making Fred McNair your offensive coordinator and you getting Jaylen Woods back at quarterback. Unless those two things can completely turn your season around where you can make a complete 180. Complete 180 to the point where Southern wins the SWAC West, Southern wins the SWAC Championship, and Southern wins the Celebration Bowl. At this point, I'm not going to lie, it's too little, too late, and you really need to start spitballing who's going to be your next head coach at Southern. I know people are already talking, but I talked to somebody behind the scenes because, this morning I, received the Igniting Education, honor at my school. And in addition to that, I had a couple meetings, back-to-back meetings. And, during the meetings, I was getting notifications to my phone. But, I have my phone on silent, but you could see the flash from the phone. And that's what it was. People were sending me notifications, the social media and texting me, basically saying that Mark Frederick was out as the offensive coordinator and that Fred McNair was the new offensive coordinator. And not only that, but they were sending me hey, coach, Terrence Graves is going to get fired. They need to fire Roman Banks. They need to fire Roman Banks, and they need to fire Terrence Graves. And these are the short list of guys that should be the next head coach. And I'm like, dang, bro, y'all, I'm just finding this out. Y'all trying to, overload me with information. I got stuff to do in the building in terms of school, so I really didn't find this out until the end of the day. When I was getting ready to leave school, I saw Scotty and, shout out to Scotty with Off Script, and, I saw I was, checking out his live stream. But basically, somebody sent me, one person texted me and another person sent me a message via social media. And basically it was like, man, coach, if I was, in charge of getting Southern University's next head coach, this is who I would get. Of course, at the top of the list, they was like, man, I know, you talked about it on the Southern Baller Show. Shout out to my brother Jared O'Lover Green and the entire Southern Baller Show collective. He was like, you was right. I think they should revisit hiring Marshall Falk. I think he should be on the short list. In addition to that, they talked about the Honey Badger. He's from New Orleans. He played at LSU. Would he be interested in being a head coach at Southern? I don't know. Because, of course, Southern is across town from LSU. He played for LSU. Teron Matthew reminds me a lot of the late, great Sean Wallace. The only difference is Sean Wallace played for Southern. The Honey Badger played at LSU, but that's another story for another day. And, they also talked about, just a short list. Basically, it was Marshall Falk. It was the Honey Badger, Teron Matthew. And, then, of course, Ed Reed was on the list. And I'm like, look, based on what happened with Bethune-Cookman, my brother Big Joe Townsend and I, salute to Joe Townsend standing on LDBC business you did. We talked about it on the Southern Baller Show on Sunday. If you have not checked it out, go check it out. We talked about this. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of ADs, in terms of HBCU ADs, he still kind of got the stench of the entire scenario with Bethune-Cookman. Don't get me wrong. The way it's looking, a lot of these coaches in the SWAC, a lot of heads gonna roll at the end of the season. So I'm sure some HBCUs are going to, give him a look. But truthfully speaking, I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of ADs not going to touch Ed Reed with a 10-foot pole based on the scenario, with Bethune-Cookman. And I know Joe Townsend was like, man, coach, hey, if they don't want to win, then don't hire him. You know what I'm saying? But if you're trying to win, you're trying to turn your program around. Hey, that happened a couple years ago with Bethune-Cookman. He should be a head coach. And I think he made a valid point, but whether he agree with me or not, some of these HBCUs, in terms of their AD, they're not going to consider him. But I think Southern would definitely, revisit the Marshall Faulk situation. Whether it was a legit thing or not, I don't know. Nobody has been able to confirm or deny that. In addition to that, with Teron Matthew be interested. And not only that, but you got a lot of guys that are from the state of Louisiana, whether they are from New Orleans, whether they're from Baton Rouge, whoever. Of course, some of these names he had on the list, a couple extra names. I'm not like, bro. Like, for example, Aeneas Williams. Aeneas Williams played at Southern. He a Hall of Famer. Woo, woo, woo. I'm like, bro, Aeneas Williams is not coming back to Southern to be no head football coach. You can scratch that. Now, if you could get him, cool. Man, Aeneas Williams is not coming to Southern to be the head football coach. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see. But I think Coach Graves was being proactive in terms of getting rid of Mark Frederick, making Fred McNair the OC. But I think it's too little too late. And at the end of the season, I'm going to just keep it a buck. I think the entire coaching staff is going to get whacked. And I don't think they're going to get rid of Roman Banks, but truthfully speaking, a large portion of the fan base, they want them to not only get rid of Terrence Gray, but they want administration to get rid of Roman Banks too. But we'll see how things play out. Like I said, if you have not done so already, please like, share, subscribe. My views up in terms of my post-game reactions, they way up. The post-game reaction views are way up. However, I need y'all to subscribe to the channel. I am less than 200 subscribers away from reaching that 1,000 subscriber milestone. So subscribe to the channel. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. You dig? And in addition to that, if you have not done so already, go check out the tailgate party from yesterday. Season 1, episode 4 of the tailgate party. Go check it out. Also, I'm going to be dropping a lot of clips from this weekend's Pete Richardson Classic all the way up and through the Jackson State game. So stay tuned to the channel. Check it out. Also, go check out the other members of the LDBC in terms of my brother, 7A Sports TV. It's 2 channels, 7A Sports TV, the No 304 Show. And also go check out the other members, the Southern Baller Show Collective. My brother, Jared 11 Green, my brother, Brent Fox. Go check them out on their respective channels. And also, my brother, Joe Townsend, Mr. Old Hillside. Hey, you like bourbon, you like whiskey. First of all, if you have to be 21, drink responsibly. But my brother, Joe Townsend, hey, if you like bourbon, you like whiskey, go check out Old Hillside, online Old Hillside Bourbon Company. I know a lot of people, some of my subscribers, they drink Uncle Nears and Old Hillside. They kind of parallel. Old Hillside hasn't reached Uncle Near's level yet, but it's on the way. But I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening. Peace and blessings. And go Jags. Yeah, dig.